Hello lovely, in this video we are on T, or one of the T's in our A to Z of Doll's House miniatures, and I will show you some of the tools that I recommend that you get when you're starting out. You don't need to get masses and masses of tools. There are just a few simple bits and pieces that are very affordable while you get started, in case you decide you don't want to continue with the project, or you're working with a limited budget. So let's start off easy and simply, and I'll just show you what you can get initially, and then some of the things that are sort of like quite nice to have, and I'll also show you around my cabin a little bit at the tools that I've got, and I'll tell you which ones I use a lot and which ones I don't use much at all. Let's get cracking. So the first thing I would recommend you buy, whatever it is you're going to be doing to do with Doll's House and making miniatures or whatever, is a cutting mat. And this is an A3 size cutting mat. So A4 is half of that, if you think of like a sheet of paper. A3 is that. You can get them bigger. And you can get these from various different sewing shops you might have nearby to you. This is a very well-known brand. There are all sorts of them around. Most often they're in green. You'll pay an awful lot more if you want a pretty colour. Is it worth paying them more for a pretty colour? You have to ask yourself. It comes in imperial on one side, feet and inches in my world, and metric on the other. And it's got every shape that you need on here. All your angles are here, size of circles. It is self-sealing, so that means when you're using your blade and you're cutting something, it will sort of seal up again, which is really handy. And I glue on here and I paint on here, and it protects my table. If you turn it around and use different parts of it, you're not getting wear always in the same place, and you get better life out of it, if you like. And this has been through quite a lot of abuse already, but it's working well worth the money. I would not be without my cutting mat. Also, when you finish doing what you're doing, if you're doing it on the dining table, for instance, you can move your cutting mat in its entirety to somewhere safe with all of your gubbins or your project on or whatever. So the other thing I would recommend, or the next thing I would recommend, is get yourself a couple of steel rulers. If I just move the cutting mat, you'll be able to see a bit better. The best stored flat, but it'll lie down for now. So this is a steel ruler. You can, if you look around online, you can often buy them as the pair. So this is the foot and the 6 inches, but it's also got the metric measurements on here as well. And this is your cutting edge. Don't bother trying to use your kids' plastic school ruler, because you'll be slicing into it in chunks. This is what is going to keep your work solid and safe. It'll also protect your fingers, because you use this to hold down whatever you're using, and then you cut against the steel rule. On rulers, the other thing I would recommend is getting a householdy carpenter work person kind of tape measure. And this one, I think I mentioned this in a video before, depends if you're watching this in sequence or not. This has got at 12 inches, it's in red, so I know that that's 1 foot, 2 foot. So this, if I'm doing 1/12 scale, which they are in my doll's houses, I know that this is going to be 2 inches. So if you're not imperial minded, as in feet and inches, it's a good idea to start getting your head around that if you're going to be working 1/12 scale. So rulers, steel rule. The next thing, a blade. Say a blade, but it's a knife. It's just a hobby knife, and you can get these quite cheaply, and you slide it along, and the blades have little markings on them, and then what you do is you can break off that bit of blade once it's gone blunt. There isn't a lot left in this. I've only got 2 sections there, and I think I'm going to be changing the blade very soon. But it's got a good hand hold and it's nice and secure. And I say very reasonably priced. Then what I do with my blades when I snap off the bit that's just gone blunt is I put it in one of these. It's just like an old jam jar, miniature jam jar. And when that is full, which is going to take a long time, then I will worry about disposing that safely. But don't put your cut blades in the domestic rubbish, because it could lead to a nasty accident. Sorry, little health and safety bit there. What else? You can get, I got these from Dunelm. Get yourself some scissors. You maybe don't want to be using your best sewing scissors for cutting cardboard or sticky stuff. I tend to keep different scissors for different projects, and I do have a pair of really sticky, gluey scissors if I'm cutting something wet and gluey, but I tend to keep the biggest ones for fabric, and then this is sort of all sorts, and this is other all sorts. But I say, you don't need to spend a huge amount of money on these things to begin with, to just get going. I'm just looking at my list here. Cocktail sticks. You will get through masses of these, most likely. They're great for turning over little tiny edges of fabric. They're good for applying glue, taking off glue, poking in little corners here, there and everywhere. Brilliant. So wherever you can get them cheapest, go and buy yourself a big bag of them, because we're talking probably pennies for those. Cocktail sticks, use loads of those. Tweezers are useful, and I've got a selection of tweezers here. There are all sorts. I think these came in a set with a couple of others. Don't know where these came from. Some are more pokey end, some are more rounded end. But if you want to like put something on a shelf, it's so much easier holding something, put some glue on the bottom, and then you can put that into place. The tweezers, brilliant. Oh yes, if you are buying a kit from the start, obviously you're going to need any sort of wood glue. And if it's an MDF kit, please wear a mask. Sure, you can find masks very easily these days, but MDF is really nasty stuff, so you don't want to be sanding or drilling into that without wearing a mask. You can get sandpaper if you need sandpaper. You may well want to get some wood glue as well. I use wood glue in a tube these days rather than a tub because it lasts longer. And again, your cocktail sticks will come in handy with that. What else have we got? So moving on, masking tape is brilliant. Go to your hardware shop, B&Q or whatever, they've got all sorts of different types of masking tape. You haven't got to spend a fortune, you don't need a huge range. Keep it simple to begin with. And this will, you can use the masking tape to hold something together while something is drying. Multitude of uses for masking tape. One of my favourite tools is this guillotine, handheld guillotine. So this is like a Stanley knife blade in there, and you can move it to the angle you want. Particularly good if you're doing skirtings or cornices, and then you can just slice it. Actually, if you're doing cornices, you've probably got to use a saw and a mitre box. But if you're doing the smaller bits of wood, this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Saves an awful lot of fiddling and headache. And the only other thing I will mention today, because we're starting to get a little bit more advanced, and you might not need these, but you might find them useful, is clamps, and I think all of these I probably got in my DIY store. So this came in, these were in a set of probably 6 or 8. These are in a set I think of 4. I think these are in a set of 2. I think I've mentioned these in one of my shopping finds video. But great while furniture is drying and bits and pieces are drying, but you might not need these depending on what you're going to be making. But none of this stuff has been particularly expensive. This is probably the most expensive, and it wasn't hugely expensive, but really good. And it's even got a spare blade in there because I'm going to have to change my blade very soon. But I use that a lot, and I think that's it. There are endless other things you can add to your selection box of tools depending on what you're doing, what you're making, but add them in as you go. If somebody wants to gift you money for tools or whatever, thank you very much. Can I spend it as I go? You don't need to go out and spend it all at once when you don't really know what you need. So if they, if somebody wants to do that, that would be wonderful to get you started. But I suggest you just buy what you need to begin with. So let's show you around my studio a little bit. I confess I have not tidied up. You're seeing it raw and real. That's looking at Bramble Cottage there. And it's a dull, cool day today, although it's August. It feels positively chilly. Now I use a sad light on doomy gloomy days because it lifts my mood, but it gives me brilliant daylight. It's a daylight simulation bulb, good for my brain, but also great to be working with. This is another supposedly daylight bulb, but it's not as daylighty as that. But anyway, that's not talking about tools, but I know some people think I've got some strange lighting going on in here. Move my cup of tea dregs. So over here, this is where I put my cup of tea, and I've got just stuff to hand here. Cocktail sticks. What have I got in here? That's my Dremel, which I virtually never use. Odds and sods in there, odds and sods in there. This is where I keep my blades and tweezers and little hand files and stuff. Haven't mentioned those because they're sort of nice to have. Some paints, some pens, bits and pieces. Up here I keep my rulers, measuring things, super glue. I've got these saws that I have used occasionally. Don't use those very much at all. Just bought this coping saw for a project. Haven't used it yet. It's still wrapped up. Go down here to my right down below. I've got glue, paint, glue, varnishy stuff, paint, wood filler, Mod Podge paint. In that box there is all sorts of odds and sods useful things. In that box there is paints and varnishes and things that I use a lot of. And there I've got sandpapers and stuff. Little bits of sandpaper in there to hand. Oh, in here I've got, haven't mentioned this today, but that's where I've got my pliers and stuff that I use. Bits of fabric on there. Working in project things. What have I got? So here I've got my spatulas from art stuff, and I keep my masking tapes. I always seem to use this masking tape. I don't seem to use those two. Don't know why. Pinch those from Paul's drawer. They're from when he was at school and university and stuff, but I never use them. Well, I've used them occasionally. Hang my wood up behind me there. Move my chair out of the way. And I have got one of these plastic mats that protect. It's not so much about protecting the floor, but the lino-y stuff. Vinyl was getting all wrinkly. See, I'm in my scruffy woolly pulleys today, and I use a yoga block to put my feet on, because I want to be the height I want, but keep my feet at the right height. So I've got all sorts of crates of stuff down there. I'll show you those another day. So down here, this is, if you like, the more woodworking tools. I haven't actually put the heater on today, but I was tempted. So this is a set of chisels, which I have used a bit. They are a nice to have thing, but not essential. Oh, there's other little bits of wood that came with Maggie May's. This I've used quite a lot. A mitre box, and can't remember what sort of saw that's called, but it's a chunky saw. And what's that? Oh, pinva. Oh, right. Okay, yeah, pinva. I've used that a bit. Spare bit of wood escaped. I did originally buy a plastic mitre saw, but you very quickly will find that you're slicing through the plastic and it makes your angles go a bit squiff. And then up here I keep my clamps on. The electrics have to go through the trunking in my cabin because the cabin has to expand because it's a log cabin in the garden, so all the electrics have to be in trunking. Can't have anything that goes over the joins of the slabs in my cabin, but that's by the by. So I've got my clamps on there, I've got these clamps hanging here, got my scissors hanging here, so this is just behind me. Keep my guillotine there, keep my hammer on the top there. Paul calls this my toffee hammer because it's just a little tiddly thing, but it's useful if I want to put a pin in the wall for odds and sods on the wall. I've got various bits and pieces in there. That's where I keep little things, and then paintbrushy kind of stuff. Oh look, I've got some hollyhock seeds there. Bit of glue not quite finished, and then other things. Yes, we're a messy muddle today. I confess it often is, actually. And I can look out in the garden, which is all looking a bit dull and damp today.